Wow. Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to our class. This is our last class for this particular course on Buddhist ethics. Maybe we'll have another course in the future on tantric ethics, whatever's publicly discussable, sort of on a video or so, or at least give some ideas or a background on it, which might be nice. But this is sort of the preliminary sketching of all of our vows as a class. And so I'm really happy we did this class together. It's great. So I figured, in a lot of ways, we could talk about this over and over and over again and have reviews and questions and answers. Because like I always say, this is kind of where the rubber hits the road. Like the more practical questions you have about being a Buddhist are all around these ethical rules. Like there's, the questions you have, only 3 higher trainings, like, ethics, concentration, wisdom. So everyone has questions: what's emptiness? What's school of emptiness? What's this? What's that? And then practical questions around meditation for concentration, tranquil abiding. How do I meditate? What's shamatha? What's vipassana? Blah, blah, blah. And then the first higher training of ethics, to me, it's like you can talk again and again and again, over and over again, about Buddhist vows and ethics. What do they mean? How do you apply them? What do you do in this situation? Am I doing this right? Am I doing that wrong? What happens when this happens? Blah, blah, blah. So I think the questions are always really, really awesome and very practical and really I guess you could just say helpful when we talk about Buddhist ethics and vows. I love, because I'm sort of an egghead and intellectual, I like all this sort of heady intellectual stuff around emptiness. I feel like I'm some Christian monk in some medieval monastery and debating and scholasticism and this and that too. But I think the practical stuff of Buddhism, of course, always goes back to just how we treat other people and how we treat ourselves when we're doing our vows. So anyway, thank you everybody for sort of attending this class and asking questions before, and I'm looking forward to today to share. So let's just start with the Heart Sutra here. A little bit of meditation. Okay. And here we go. Homage to the perfection wisdom of the Blessed Mother. Thus I've heard at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rashkriya and Mass Vultures Mountain together, great assembly monks and great assembly bodhisattvas. That time the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. That time also, Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of the great beings, looking perfectly the price of profound perfection wisdom, looking perfectly also at the 5 aggregates, being empty of inherent existence. And the power Buddha, Venerable Shariputra, said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of the great being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of the great being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly also at the 5 aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, and form is not other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Should I put you like this? All phenomena are emptiness, having no characteristics, do not produce and do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there's no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, and no consciousness. There's no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomenon. There's no I element, and so forth, up to no mentality element, and also up to no element of mental consciousness. There's no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death and no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there's no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there's no attainment bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom, their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing on and beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all Buddhas reside perfectly in the 3 times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, making manifest complete Buddhas in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal to the unequal mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it's not false, should be known as the truth. Mantra perfection wisdom is proclaimed Tayata, Lamgata Gata Paragata Parasamgati Bodhisoha. Shariputra Bodhisattva, great beings should train the profound perfection wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being that he'd spoken well. Good, O son of the lineage, just like that, since it's like that, just as you have revealed, in that way the profound perfection wisdom should be practiced, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva, the great being, power circle disciples as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, We're delighted and highly praise what had been spoken by the Blessed. Okay, so let's take a moment just to sort of settle in here and get ready for our short meditation. You can just feel that we're in a wide open space here, ground like lapis lazuli, surrounded by all sentient beings. 6 realms of samsara, or cyclic existence. So we can feel our mothers on our left, fathers on our right, people we love the most behind us as support, people we like the least or have issues with in front of us as objects of compassion. And from there, people from all over the world, animals and sort of natural beings, all different sort of natural sort of ecosystems here, all beings from the spirit world, different astral and ethereal and elemental realms, celestial beings, different the asuras, different kinds of gods, so desire, form, and formless realm, and countless numbers of beings in lower states of rebirth in the suffering realms, such as hungry ghost realms and different hells. But we're all here together, ready to meditate together. And the sky above us, beautiful sky, cloudless, bright. And in it, just simple, just for our vows course, we've just been visualizing Buddha Shakyamuni to sort of take it back to sort of the first teachings Buddha gave on ethics and vows and commitments. So we're visualizing Buddha Shakyamuni in the sky. It's very simple, just like a sun on a summer day. Beautiful golden energy body made out of light. And he's holding a bag of both medicinal nectar in his left hand, and right hand is touching the earth. He's in Vajra pose and wearing 3 robes of a monk. And at his heart is his higher form, a fine couple, Vajradhara and Vajradhatu Ishvari, beautiful blue bodies, like the blue diamond or blue sapphire. And they're in sexual embrace, wearing crowns and beautiful jewelry, so forth. And he's got a bell in his left hand, Dorje in his right, or Vajra scepter. She has a skull cup with medicinal nectar in her left hand, and curved chopper knife or drigu in her right. And between them is a blue hum letter in Tibetan or Sanskrit script. Otherwise, you can visualize in the English HUM. This is the sound or vibration. And representing the Dharmakaya or wisdom truth body of Buddha's or enlightened mind of the Buddhas. So Buddha Shakyamuni is shining in the sky like a beautiful sun. Do refuge in bodhicitta here. I and all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Generating bodhicitta through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, we may become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving and other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. And through the virtues we collect by giving and other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Now, generating the 4 immeasurables of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. May everyone be happy. May everyone be free from misery. May no one ever be separated from their happiness. May everyone have equanimity, free from hatred and attachment. May everyone be happy. May everyone be free from misery, separated from their happiness. May everyone have equanimity, free from hatred and attachment. And last time, just in our hearts here with our bodhicitta intention, whatever we're doing here today, everything that we're doing will be for the enlightenment of all beings. May we become enlightened for the welfare of all beings to live in the same state. So generating love, joy, love, compassion, joy, and equanimity for them. May everyone be happy. May everyone be free from misery, be separated from their happiness. May everyone have equanimity, free from hatred. Okay, 7 limbs practice. So prostration, just feel like we're making bows and prostrations and respect, singing praises and mind of faith towards Buddha Shakyamuni as the synthesis of the 3 jewels and all beings. offerings just from our heart, countless outer, inner, and secret offerings, or just again, just of your own mind or imagination. Like I always like being like Samantha Badger. I'm not like him, but try to be where you just visualize billions of flowers in all directions, like mountain meadows, wildflowers, English gardens, Zen gardens, or just all beautiful flowers. I feel like it's even more auspicious to visualize light offerings, so candles, so just beautiful butter lamps, like when you see in Nepal, where for one lamp for Wesak or New Year, they'll put all the butter lamps around the Bodhana Stupa or so forth, just at night, or just when you're on the Ganges. If you've ever been to India, where you have all the beautiful candles, yeah, and lamps going down the river, offering all this to Buddha Shakyamuni. So declaration or owning our karma, our sort of negative parts of ourselves, and rejoicing positive parts. So sort of standing up naked here in front of the Buddhas and all sentient beings and say, here I am, all the bad karma I've created, continue to create because of my delusions and bad habits. But I'm going to own all of it. It's no one's fault but mine in the end, in the big cosmic picture of karma. And the good thing about that is I can outgrow it, purify it, let it go, leave it behind, transcend it, emerge from it towards sort of, we all cast a shadow, but that's because we're heading towards the light. We're sort of shedding this sort of snake skin of all of our negativities, which are based on our self-cherishing and self-grasping. So please, Buddhas, grant us blessings and support and guidance, and all sentient beings help us be better people here. And then rejoicing in all the virtues, all the goodness of all the Buddhas and Buddhist angels and dakinis and so forth, all the virtue other people have in the world that we see, all the little acts of kindness and goodness around us, and all of our goodness we've created throughout our lives. And even now, just sort of sitting down and meditating here, let's all rejoice in this attitude of gratitude and choosing to focus on the good stuff, good things in life, not sort of turning on the news and getting upset about how wicked the world is, how stupid people are, but quite the opposite, looking around and noticing all the goodness and all goodness of sentient beings and holy beings. Okay, our hands just sending up a lion throne here, dissolving into Buddha. Please, Buddha Shakyamuni and all of our Buddhist teachers and holy beings, stay with us day in, day out until we reach enlightenment. Be that light in our lives. And the eight-spoked golden chakra, we send that up. Please continue to teach us and guide us, lead us along the path to enlightenment. We're wandering around the dark, so we need the flashlight and the map, but we also need the guide for sort of the person who's been to enlightenment and back to show us the way, so we can get there speedily and safely. And finally, dedication here. Everything that we're doing may be cause for the awakening of all beings. Okay, last big offering, holding the purified universe, the mandala at our hearts here. Just say, just visualizing the Vedic universe of the Mount Meru and all the 4 lands, 8 subcontinents, precious possessions of a Chakravartin ruler, all beautiful things. The ground sprinkled with perfume and spread with flowers. A great mountain, 4 lands, sun and moon, seen as a Buddha land, and off the dust, may all beings enjoy such purity. We send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious gurus, to all of our gurus and all the Buddhas here. Om Edam Guru Naman, come here to you. Me. Okay, so having done all these offerings and requests and purifications and so forth, just feel now we're getting blessing energy. So like just beautiful sunbeams or light coming down I always like, if you go to certain Chinese or Vietnamese temples, they have lasers behind the statues, which I really, really like. So, pew, pew, coming from the Buddhas, same kind of thing. Of course, we don't necessarily want a strong laser, a beam of energy going into us. Maybe it's a little too intense, but just like soft light, like sunbeams or radiance coming down from the Shakyamuni here, golden lights and energy, nectars, and so forth. So when it hits us, you feel great, great bliss. So a sense of totality and peace and contentment, happiness. And again, that's filling us up just like charging our phone or low sort of reactive, sad thoughts energy. And we go up to feeling more powerful and creative and joyful thoughts. That's in all sentient beings. And press the final blessing here with the Shakyamuni, who's you're the synthesis of the three jewels of refuge of the Sangha. Please grant us your blessings of body, speech, and mind. Please feel that your body sense of all Sangha jewels, speech is synthesis of all Dharma jewels, mind sense of all Buddha jewels. Please grant us your blessings. So Buddha Shakyamuni just starts emitting golden light and then starts to sort of shrink inwards, just sort of like dissolving into golden light, his whole body, and then moving inwards. So it's just sort of the divine couple of Vajradhara and Vajradhatu Ishvari in the sky now. Just like a little blue diamond or a little star. And again, like a falling star, but very, very slow, comes down to the crown of our head, turns around facing the same direction as us, and then slowly enters our crown chakra and descends in front of our spine into our heart. And that point just dissolves into our root mind, our most subtle mind. Just feel that all the blessings, the energy, all the teachings of Sutra and Tantra, all the wisdom, compassion, and power, blessings of all the lineages, so we're downloading that directly into our mind here. Again, just like pouring honey on something to make it taste delicious, it just all goes into our mind. Again, as I always say, joy and bliss here and spaciousness. So bliss being that sense of totality and satisfaction and rest and peace and contentment, deep, deep peace, deep, deep happiness. Joy being just total affirmation here. Positive potential, positive creative, positive power. And of course, will be put out to helping others. And great, great spaciousness and luminosity or awakeness. So coming out of meditation now. Okay, so thanks for coming here. So I'm just gonna at the very end of the class, I'm gonna keep an eye on the time. I'm just gonna teach a few minutes just on some final thing, just about Buddhist ethics, one thing we can do to restore bodhisattva vows. I thought it'd be nice to kind of end on that. But obviously for the meantime here, thought we could just have a little discussion or question and answer about the class here. So again, just whatever people are comfortable asking or discussing about or whatever. Again, doesn't even have to run the full time. If people don't have a lot of questions, it's just I like giving the opportunity to sort of go over the material here. We've had one discussion class already around the Pranay Moksha vow. So this one could be about more bodhisattva vows, for instance, but it can be about any vows or any sort of ethical question or something in Buddhism. So with that, the floor is open here for anybody.
Okay, Matthew.
Yeah.
I think I am so grateful to have had these classes, these teachings, because I feel like I'm finally understanding why ethics are so important. I've got that. Yeah. And my problem, like I'm sure it's true for many people, is I still cannot keep commitments. You know, like there are the 100,000 mantras we should do for each of the basically perfections. And I haven't done that, you know, like I've done it for Guru Yoga and I haven't been able to do it for others, even though I really want to. I find that I hold in myself, I have all of this inside and I think about it, it's with me all the time, you know, and it's manifesting in my life. I can see that, but I still haven't been able to do those commitments that I would like to. And, you know, I don't have any family that's Buddhist. I have a fairly large and a family that's going through all sorts of stuff, and I'm the matriarch. And so I feel like I'm letting myself down by not doing these things, and you know, trying to fit in tantric practice, which takes a lot of energy and time. I just need, I guess, some reassurance or advice about how I can do this more effectively and make time for it.
That's an amazing question. Thank you, Marcia. And maybe the only question we need to ask today, like I think that's probably, I know I have that question. I know most people I talked to over the years have had this question, concern, confession, like there's a whole bunch of dimensions to that as a question. Maybe it's one of the only things, I didn't say the only good question, there's so many good questions about ethics, but that's really a foundational one when you think about. So I've got a lot of different thoughts on that because I could say the exact same thing about myself, of course. A friend of mine at work is Chinese background, and she's Chinese Pure Land. And what's really cute is I just think maybe it's an ESL thing. But, you know, we talk about our different practices and, you know, like our path and this and that. And I haven't seen her in a while. But what was really, really cute is she said, oh, you know, Tibetan Buddhism, I don't know much about it. You know, I just know what we do. But she's like, do your teachers give you a lot of homework? That's the word for vows or commitments is homework. And in a lot of ways, it, you know, and then I was thinking about that. Okay, it's like homework. And then I remember reading an article years ago in the Globe and Mail about Buddhism in Cambodia making a big, that's of course Theravada Buddhism, I believe, making a comeback, of course, after years of the Red Terror under the Khmer Rouge and Civil War and all these problems. But what was interesting is they had a guy, and he used to be a Buddhist monk or something. He's become this evangelical Christian. Good for him, whatever. But he was saying what was interesting is in the interview, they were just asking him why everyone sort of switching over to evangelical Christianity compared to following their traditional, more cultural path of getting into Theravada Buddhism. And what he was saying, he had so much, you could see he had so much devotion to Buddhism still and Buddhist Shakyamuni, but he was saying that, quote unquote, it's too hard. That basically people just want to be saved. Their lives are so hard, they kind of want a skyhook, or like the Star Trek, beam me up to heaven. And the idea that I have to do this work myself when people are so traumatized from years of war and everything else, that they need sort of an easier path to finding some degree of liberation, which would mean finding the evangelical path to Christianity. So, and that's fine. That's his opinion. Good for him. If that helps people, great. But what I thought was cute was just this acknowledgement that the Dharma path is too hard. So let's sort of take the off ramp onto something a little easier there. So we do have, I guess what I'm getting with this is why what makes Buddhism so hard is it's a path of self-liberation. And I think, I've thought a lot about this over the years, the kind of difficulties we have, because number one, we're in Kali Yuga age. We're not in the golden age of Buddhism. So if we were around 2,500 years ago, around Buddhist time, where the karma is completely different. You read all the stories and sutras where people just go meet Buddha and they get enlightened. They ask one question, Buddha says something, bing, and they're enlightened. And they think, oh my God, that was so easy. Look at me, how hard it is now. And then things get harder and harder. Nowadays, we can see the way the world is, and the conditions are difficult. Like, even, I'm sure a lot of us have been practicing Dharma here for a long time, but I think of when I started practicing, let's say 30 years ago, compared to now, the external conditions of my life, in terms of the historical period, I find myself are far more difficult. And even it's a lot less of a spiritual time now than it was before in a real way. Like, everyone's into wellness and everything, but things are so superficial now that it's actually hard to go deep into a spiritual path. Things are so materialistic now, so difficult. And then, of course, in the Gelugpa tradition, bless our hearts, I mean, this is our main tradition. This is, the source of all happiness in my life. But a lot of times we've been given as an example to follow that we should be like monks and nuns, practicing all day. Like when I started, you still had this kind of idea that, you should, for every commitment you've taken, you should do the long sadhana for it. So, oh my God, like that's like 5 hours of practice every day, even though you have to go to work. And that if you're not becoming a monk or a nun and you're not doing that level of practice, then you're a loser, you're a failure, you shouldn't be here. So in some ways that was a little, I don't think that's correct. That was a little maybe lack of skill compared to things, but I also just think how difficult it is nowadays to even approximate any of that. So just thinking that there's a lot of, the karma is hard to do this path nowadays. It sort of becomes more and more of a path of quote unquote heroes and heroines, so to speak, because it's so difficult. But at the same time, we're, I think, trying to do a lot because we're practicing Vajrayana Buddhism. All of us want to get enlightened quickly, as we say with the Tantric Bodhicitta verse, right? Quickly may I turn and become enlightened. So a lot of people, like when you first start this path, they're like, oh, sure, I'll be like Milarepa and I'll get enlightened in this lifetime. No problem, let me try. Whereas you look at other Buddhist traditions, or historically, the way it's given, is calling it 3 great aeons to get enlightened. You know how long an aeon is? That's the life of the universe. That's like, forget even the sun exploding, whatever, 10 billion years from now, it's like the whole galaxy burning down. So that's a long time. So 3 of those, not 1, 3. It's this idea that it takes a very, very long time to do this. And why? It's because you have to do it yourself. You have to keep its whatever. I mean, it's just kind of like school that never ends. Imagine having to do grades 1 to 12 for 10,000 years. That's kind of, oh my God, I have to do geography or algebra again and again and again. It's kind of like this. And I'm almost like some of these movies now that talk about parallel universes or reincarnation. We're going to die here. And let's say we get reincarnated as a person again to practice Dharma. You have to go through the whole thing again of taking rebirth and learning to walk and talk and feed yourself and go to school. Then you find Buddhism as a teenager, and then you got to pick up where you left off. So it takes a really, really long time to do this. And what do Buddhists and all the Buddhist angels and Dakinis, what do? The only thing they do is teach you. and cheer you on. Here you go, Matthew. You can do it. You can do it. So they can't even pull you along with a rope. They're just sort of there as a guide, almost like a coach, your fitness coach telling you to lift the weights. Like, come on, one more rep, now, like this, and giving you a bottle of water. Like, if they could make you enlightened, they would have done it already. So it is, we have to see how hard this is. This is literally like climbing Mount Everest with one arm, the other one tied behind your back. It's a really, really hard path, which is why it takes so long to get enlightened. And we're humans, we're not little crabs on the beach or birds or bees or whatever. So we have to give ourselves at least cut ourselves a little bit of slack just with the huge project that we have here. The one thing I do want to take out of the equation is our very Western Judeo-Christian idea of guilt, because you shouldn't feel guilty about this. Guilt is a Semitic concept we have in our Western civilization. Guilt is what happens when you break a law. You break a law, you are guilty, you go to trial, and you are judged, right? We have this, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, that's our culture. This is the Abrahamic faith tradition that we've inherited as a civilization, is that God gives laws. There's a contract you sign with God, like Abraham, read the Old Testament, and then you go up Mount Sinai, ka-ching, you get the laws, and then you get, Jesus gives you more laws, and then Muhammad gives you more, well, whatever, the Quran gives you more, all these laws, and that's the law, that's the rules, that's the contract. You break it, oh, now you're arrested, and you're on trial, and the angels are there, and God's the judge with the big hammer there, and you have to plead yourself. Oh my God, I didn't know what I was doing. That's a completely different context than what we're doing here. Like, I don't like making Buddhism sound stupid by always using gym analogies or life coach analogies, kind of dumbing it down. But it is a process of self-liberation based on self-education, right? So it's almost like the butterfly growing out of the caterpillar. That's what we have, because every sentient being will get enlightened, guaranteed, on their own timeline. Why we're hard with ethics is because we don't want to keep putting ourselves back. You don't want to keep failing grade 8 and doing it over and over again. Not just because it's like you're the loser and all your friends keep going on, they're going to graduate high school. But by failing in your vows, you're just making it, holding you back from graduating samsara. So don't feel regret. The virtues we have here are basically like shame and regret or conscientiousness. Those are the mental factors. In the same way as you can have regret for all sorts of stupid things that you do. You know what I mean? Like whatever, like, you know, you lost all this weight on a diet, then you go on a bender and you eat like 5 tubs of ice cream and you put all the weight, but you can have regret for making a stupid mistake based on your delusions like that. But I don't think you should ever feel guilty about this, because you're not being judged. The only judge you have is yourself. The Buddhists have compassion because they see that all of your harm is self-inflicted, just like they're looking at you like some drug addict. And you're like, well, I wish Matthew would kick that drug. Oh my God, we feel so bad for him. We're helping him. We're bringing him to Narcotics Anonymous. We're supporting him, blah, blah, blah. But he keeps relapsing. Oh my God, what are we going to do? That's the analogy we're using here. So have that timeline. See how hard it is to do this. It's very, very hard. And the humility that comes with that, in the sense that we're trying our best. All we can do is trying our best. And Albert Camus always said, justify your life, in the sense that at the end of the day, you can, if you try your best with the Dharma, you can die saying, in my next life, or I go to the Pure Lands or wherever I end up, I've given this my best shot by trying as hard as I could with what I was given, and that I'm going to keep going. Like in the big cosmic scheme, sign me up again. I'm showing up again at school here, the big cosmic school, till I get enlightened. And then bit by bit taking it. So if you have, like for instance, Noon is a hard thing to do. But it depends if your teachers have given it to you. If they give it to you as a commitment or vow to do and you don't do it, then you really have to try to do it. But in a lot of ways, some people don't do their Noon. That's not necessarily, where you want to do your Noon is because it creates so much merit, purifies so much negativity that it allows the greater capacity to get realizations in your tantric practice. So it's good to do that, but is it the absolute end of the world if you don't do that? Well, of course it isn't. You know, a lot of ways, even though a lot of us are tantric practitioners, the most important thing is our Hinayana practice, these really basic levels of Buddhism, like vows and ethics, some kind of meditation practice for concentration and an understanding of emptiness. And then we're entering the bodhisattva path where we're really, really trying to strengthen our bodhicitta. Does that help? I don't know if is that a bit of an answer for you, do you think, Marcia, or what do you?
Yes, it's a lovely answer.
Yeah.
I've been sort of coming to that conclusion myself, but you can't help being disappointed in yourself when you don't do it. So it's that struggle. And you used a term just now that I had,
Yeah.
or a word I haven't heard before, or I haven't. You said you're a Nudro, is that what you said?
Nudro, now that's the foundation practice that you have in Tibetan Buddhism. I don't think they have it in other tantric systems, but that's the 4 foundation practices. In some traditions, you have to do those 4 before you even get a tantric initiation. In the Gelugpa tradition, you kind of do everything at the same time. You know, you're doing sutra, you're getting ready, you're doing tantra, you're doing your Nudra, all kind of one, and they all sort of like are an interconnecting web of practice. But other ones, it's seen as kind of like your prerequisite. You know, you have to do all this stuff to get into law school, so to speak, right? So you have to do 100,000 prostrations, 100,000 mandala offerings, 100,000 guru mantras, and 100,000 they say mandala.
Vajrasattva.
Vajrasattva, that's the one I was missing there. Yeah. So you have to do that. And then if you wanted to do a 3-year retreat in the Gelugpa tradition, you have to do another 5 on top of that, making 9. And the idea that why you do this is that this gives you the merit and purification that when you start practicing Tantra, real things start to happen. Like, this is why Nudro is important. I know people that skip it all the time, and then they try and go into long retreat. And what happens is all their negativities, delusions, and obstacles that they had, that they thought they could kind of somehow leapfrog or go around them by not doing Nudro. And then it's like driving right into a brick wall. They hit them in retreat. Whereas Nudro is like, you want to plant a garden, that's all the hard work of taking the rocks out of the garden, taking the rototiller in there, pulling all the weeds out, getting it ready so you can plant. Then it's kind of easy. Whereas imagine planting just raw earth, pulling like this, will it work? Well, it might work, sure. But that kind of work has to, taking the rocks out, tilling the soil, that all has to happen at a certain point anyway. So Nudro is given to you as sort of a foundation to get you started. And that's why it's so important to do. You can never, there's no magic way of getting around purifying your negativities. It's just impossible. You just have to go through it. I guess the only other point that I wanted to do is to look at this more, I was talking, Rob and I always talk philosophy here, but, more sort of on it, we'd argue sort of a Spinoza, or Baruch Spinoza, my favorite philosophers, said that everything is power and that everything in the world is characterized by being at a different level of power, which I think, or energy, you could say, which is amazing. But what you'll see with ethics, karma, and Buddhism, really, one of my teachers, Ken Rinpoche in Toronto, always said, Buddhism's simple. In the end, it's about what you should let go and what you should adopt, what you should do, what you should not do. But I'd say in that is different levels of power, in the sense that what you'll see is the more good or virtuous things you do, the more positive power you have in your life. The more negative things that you do, the more negative power or lack of power you get in your life. And you can see this. So the benefit of doing practice like Nudra, or even keeping your vows, is creating quote unquote positive energy in your life. So Spinoza was funny. He said, the more good things that you do, the more joyful thoughts you get. So your body becomes bigger and starts connecting out with the world and getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. The more negative things he calls them sad thoughts, you start to contract your power and you start disentangling, like disconnecting, I should say, from the world. So you have less and less power and you start constricting inwards and kind of atrophying out, and there's less you can do. And I found, I'm not arguing that Buddhism is the same thing as Spinoza's. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying it's a helpful analogy. The more practice you do, the easier it is to be good. The easier it is to have powerful energy, the more power you have in your life to be a good person. So the happier you are, and the happier you make everyone around you, the more creative that you are, and the more you're just into your self-cherishing mind, that what you'll find is the less power you have in your life, the less things work out for you, the more unhappy you are, the more removed you are. Because remember, one's based on opening up a sense of wisdom to the interconnectedness of all things, to emptiness and when anything's possible. The other thing's based on impossibility, right? Which is self-grasping mind, that everything's separate, everything's self-enclosed, everything's unchanging, everything's permanent, everything's negative, everything's one against the other. So you can see the difference even on an energetic level. So the more you practice, the more you'll be able to practice. The more you keep your vows, the more you'll be able to keep your vows. That's the funny thing. And that's why if you see Rinpoche's advice, he always just says, just practice, 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 practice. And it seems like, well, what kind of answer is that? Like, what do you mean just sit down there and practice, do pujas all the time? But what's funny is the proof's in the pudding. The more you do this, the easier it is to do, the happier you are. This is what, like Lama Candace said, where, like, I mean, Lama say this, we don't know how it works, but it works. Like, the more you do it, the happier you get, less suffering you have, and the more you're able to do. And the less you do, the worse your life gets. Like I always say to friends, like, if you don't do retreats for a while, I always feel it's just almost like I'm some kind of junkie. The less practice I do, the more unhappy, disconnected, anxious, stuck that I feel in my life. It's kind of funny, so you see the necessity of practicing at a certain point because you don't want to feel that way. You don't want to be in that space anymore. You don't want to be in that place. So ethics, one of our teachers, Kandro Rinpoche, I always remember we did a retreat with her maybe in 1999 or something at the Shama Center. Maybe it was 2000 in Nova Scotia. And everything she says is just unbelievable. It's just like, she's just like such an oracle. But I always remember there were some young ordained people in the front row, and she was talking, then she stopped and she said, just look at you guys. And they're like, what? And she's like, I just want to say something here. She's like, I don't want to be too hard on you, but she's like, I really don't like your attitude that you guys have, you monks and nuns in the front row. And they're like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you guys look martyred. You look miserable. You look like someone's forced you to do this. You don't want to do this. And it's like the kids that have to stay home and practice piano where everyone else is having fun. Or it's like my friends always say about their kids sticking them in Mandarin school on Saturday morning, and they're like, it's just like all the other kids are playing, they have to go to Mandarin school. And so she's like, that goes to show you have no idea what ordination means and you don't understand karma. You should be the happiest person here because you're by being a monk or nun, you're making your ethics or karma your number one practice, which means the whole point is you're generating bliss, generating happiness. You should be the happiest people here, but you look like miserable martyred people, like these sort of dour religious people making a religious example. I'm good, you're bad. I don't want to do this, but I have to do this because then I'm going to go to heaven. And that's the wrong attitude. I've always remembered that because you can have the same lesson for our vows and commitments just as a lay practitioner. That's why we call them pratimoksha, freedom vows, things that will free you, right? So, anything else? Sorry, that's a big sort of rant.
Thank you. That was not a rant. That was a gift.
Yeah.
I guess what I was trying to say is that I was starting to feel like it was impossible, and I was losing my joy. And you have just given me something very, very big to think about and to. It was wonderful.
Well, thank you. Bit by bit, and this is why we talk with our teachers. And you always see that your practice, like I always say, is up and down based on the karma in your life. Because everything that's happening to us is a result. Everything you're seeing here is a karmic ripening. So the energies are always changing in your life. And sometimes you can't practice. Like I can't remember who I was talking to. I'm getting old where I'm just forgetting everything now. But but we were talking about, maybe it's my friend Lou in Vancouver there. We had a big Dharma chat. I can't remember who it was, but what we were saying is that if you've got a good practice and you're practicing a lot, when you run into trouble, someone dies, you're dying, you get cancer, you lose your job, there's a big forest fire, you have to go stay, I mean, whatever. I mean, it could be a little bad thing or a big bad thing. So what's interesting is at that time when you hit it, a lot of times people think, well, Matthew, I'm sure you were doing 8 hours of practice every day when you had cancer and doing self-initiation for 5 hours. And what you always find, at least maybe good practitioners can do that. I know a few people in my life that could probably be like that, but I'm certainly not like that. What happens is you practice a lot, then you hit something like that, and you can't practice that much because you are overwhelmed by suffering and difficulties. Like you're just treading water. It's like someone's dropped you, like, oh, and you're trying to swim or you're getting blown away by a big wind. So you think, well, how come you're not practicing? But at that time, what happens is it's almost like the result of all your practice kicks in, and it allows you to maintain a level of goodness or awakeness or sort of a basic level of sanity that allows you not just to get through that obstacle or problem in your life, but to get through it in a good way, with the very minimum not making it any worse than it already is, if not even improving it. And then on the other side, when you come out of it, it's like you can go back to lots of formal practice and so forth. So they say in army training, we had this as flight attendants. In your initial training, it's super hard. Like it's like going through boot camp, and then you show up online and like everyone's sloppy and it sucks. And you're like, oh my God, what happened? But they always say in training, just like in the army, when you're in a situation of stress, you don't rise to your highest potential, you'll fall to your lowest common denominator, right? So we have to have the standards high because you drop so much when you hit stress that you want to be at the very minimum in a situation where you're still in self-control and you can make rational decisions. So the training's high because when you hit online or you're in a situation, it's really, really low. So it's the same thing with your practice. We have to always, by keeping your vows as a pilot light in your gas stove, that the pilot light's always, it's your bare minimum, right? And so even if you're practicing a lot, when you fall, when you hit stressful situations, you won't fall that far. You can still get through them. Whereas if you never keep your vows and commitments, you never practice, you're just like a normal person when you hit a stressful situation. You might be okay, you might be not okay. Usually people are not okay, right? So that's why we always have this, do your commitments. Like sometimes it's, oh my God, why are you doing your commitments every day? That's the pilot light. That's what makes you feel that you're always in mandala. You are always in the mandala, but like you can say in your mind, sometimes you feel you're falling out of the Dharma. You never fall out of the Dharma because it's the emptiness of your own mind. It's impossible. But as long as you're maintaining a little bit of practice every day, that pilot light allows the gas, like the big flame when you turn the gas stove on, or allows you always to get through every single situation with just that bare amount of personal power and dignity and personal choice, right? So, yeah, no worries. Well, it's almost 9 o'clock already. We've talked a lot. I've talked a lot here. Any other questions? And again, we'll finish with a nice dedication. I'll just read a little thing here about vows. But any other sharing or question before we go on?
I would like to say something. I'd just like to say thank you, Marcia, for that question, because that was just fantastic. And the answer was fantastic. And like I woke up not knowing where I was this morning and thinking, I've got to go down there and throw out all the rotten food and clean out the fridge. And I should be at this retreat that's happening on Gabriola. And it's like, no, you chose to come here and this is what you're doing. And I'm looking forward to going downstairs and having my second coffee and cleaning out the fridge now. And thank you so much. Because that, that gaslight, that everything you said, Matthew, was very helpful.
Yeah.
So Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you guys. And this is the real thing. Like I know people have said, like I've heard different lamas and Buddhist teachers say, you know, we have so much faith in you being lay practitioners where you're stuck in life and, you know, just doing your best, trying, like there's a lot of merit in just being a normal person trying to do this. You see, like I was just at the holy mountain of Koyasan in Japan a few days ago, which is one of my favorite places in the world. It's a whole monastic community at the top of the mountain, and for tantric Buddhism in Japan, Shingon Buddhism, and it's been, all these temples have been there for 1,200 years. It's just incredible. It's like a magic mountain. You take a train up the top of the mountain, you get there, and you're in this unbelievable mandala, and then the he's kind of like Guru Rinpoche for the Japanese people, Kukai Kobodaishi, the founder of Tantric Buddhism in Japan. His mummy is there. So they say that he's still alive meditating, that he's still in this kind of like jhana state or something. He's an immortal, and he's kind of like Guru Rinpoche, like he's got this undying person. So his body is behind this one temple in this forest. You can't see it because it's in like a wooden box, but the energy is so incredible. But when I'm up there and you see all these monks, of course, it's just monks there and being Japan, but anyway, just like walking around and stuff, and everyone's meditating, you're in this Pure Land. I think, oh man, I just want to stay here. Like I want to be a monk here in the woods. And it's so now I have to go back to work, and oh no, I have to work the flight back. And it's so hard. And I see how, quote unquote, easy it would be if I'm just living as some monk in this temple and people are feeding me every day, and all I got to do is bliss out here in Koyasan. And then I'm like a normal person, no Joe Blow working class guy, I have to go and slug it out at work. But there's just as much merit. I mean, maybe even more merit on some levels, being in kind of like the combat zone of a regular life where you're just working hard to make ends meet and being with normal people and trying to be a real anonymous bodhisattva, doing your best to keep your vows and be a good person on a day-to-day basis. There's a lot of merit in that. It's not like the only thing that counts is being a monk at Koyasan, and that if you're just like a guy like me, you're just a loser, you don't cut it. Like just we should really have a sense of gratitude for the practice that we are doing in our day-to-day lives, and just keep saying, I'm just doing what I'm doing now. May I always improve, may I always be better, more and more and more, gradually sort of going up the hill there. So anything else, or just want to close it, or any other comment? Or
I just wanted to add, Matthew,
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks to both you and everyone else for what they've said. And yeah, I think that's really important. What you're emphasizing is to persevere, right? That's what we have to do, one day at a time. And that's one of the perfections, right, too, is perseverance. Yeah. But also, I think to keep in mind that, they say Buddhism is a performance art, right? So it's how you are, like you say, when the rubber hits the road, or like in your daily life. And so for you, Marcia, you mentioned how you have lots of family stuff going on, and that you're kind of a matriarch. So that's a big challenge, like as you're taking on a lot. And so it's not like you're saying, well, I can't do my practice, or I feel too lazy, I just want to watch Netflix and drink beer, right? It depends on the motivation. Like if you're busy, basically, taking care of your family, being a matriarch, then that in itself is, pretty wonderful thing. And that's part of your practice, right? That kind of follows or, fits in with your practice, your daily practice, helping others, being a benefit to others. Yeah. So anyways, that's something too that helps me keep going. When I have, sometimes I'm just lazy. I'm just, purely lazy. I'm just, watching Netflix or whatever. But there's other times where, you're busy doing stuff in your life, like, family or whatever. And anyway, so it's just something for myself to that helps me keep going.
Thank you, Rob. That's great. Thank you for sharing. There's so many different dimensions to ethics, just like Rob was saying. I mean, this is another class, but we could talk about all the different, well, I guess you could say dimensions or aspects of what it means to be ethical in Buddhism. But always part of it in ethics is, what Gant would say, do your duty, in the sense is just doing it when you don't want to do it, when you know it's right and you have to do it. Like sometimes it's just that, and that's why you need a lot of practice to serve as the energy to help give you the boost. And that's why I just wanted to say to conclude, like even with Arthur Miller's The Crucible, where the guy's getting tortured and they say, are you going to give up and admit you're guilty even though he's innocent? And they're crushing him with rocks. And then they say, what do you say? And he says, add more rocks. Like, like, I can withstand this because I'm an innocent guy. Like, in other words, sometimes you just got to do it, right? This is why I should have mentioned this earlier in the course. You always do, it's good to do pujas or practice to ask for blessings, because blessings are the energy. Like, one thing all Buddhas do, they do two things. They teach, obviously, and guide you. But the other thing they do is bless you. They send you, Honolulu's Rinpoche always says, waves of inspiring strength. The way Alexander Berzin translated blessing, or jinla, is they give you inspirational energy to give you the power to do things. So in shamanism, they call it reciprocity, where you offer, spirit world gives. And it's a circle of energy. I give energy up, I get energy back. Zzz, like this. It's the same thing here. That's why, you make prayers and offerings, is to give that energy up all the time. And then you say, please grant us me your blessings. And you visualize all this energy and goodness coming into your heart. Like I say, it sounds silly saying it's like a video game where your little power goes up. But that's what you're asking for, is the power to do this, the power to be good, the power to do your practice, So it's your little tank needs to be filled all the time. And how you do that is by making offerings and getting blessings. And this is what you see in Asia a lot when I go, just finishing up here, when I go to temples. People are so good at making offerings. Like in the West, people are like, I want Buddhist therapy. I need, gimme. I want to do this. I want to learn that. I want to learn this technique. Give me technique. Whereas you go in Asia, a lot of people don't do much practice. It's not like they're at home meditating, but people are making tons and tons of offerings and asking for blessings. Because in your day-to-day life, that's kind of what you need. You're going to work, picking the kids up, going shopping, taking care of your ailing mother. You need that energy. So you see that everyone's making incense offerings, doing prostrations, making food offerings or stuff, and everyone's like, like this in front of the temple. Like I love when I'm in Beijing at the Lama temple, the old Galupa temple, their Yongsan Lama temple, and like the token Western white guy, there are thousands of Chinese people, and everyone's lighting incense, and you're there all squished together, and there's like 1,000 people all lighting incense, and it's this beautiful thing. We're all making offerings to the big Tsongkhapa statue or big Buddha Maitreya statue, and it's like, please give me energy to get through this day, to be a good bodhisattva. Like, I've got this much energy, I got to bring the little bar up to the top there. So you just feel all that, and you can feel it, as you can start to feel, the more of an open heart you have, all that energy coming into your body, and then your heart's open and you're ready to keep your commitments and vows. Okay, so on that, I just thought if everyone has their mic off, they can repeat after me here. This is what we do to restore our bodhisattva vows. So this is what you can do every day. You can, it's in this book here by Geshe Gyatso Rinpoche, Bodhisattva Vow. You can Google search. I know FPNT's got, they might have a little blurb on it somewhere that you can do, easy enough to find. But technically, most sadhanas have this in it, and which means that you're always taking the bodhisattva vow, or always restoring, purifying your vows here. So to prevent our bodhicitta from degenerating, we promise 3 times. So you can just repeat after me. I'll say this really slow. From this time forth until I become a Buddha, I shall keep, even at the cost of my life, a mind wishing to attain complete enlightenment, to free all living beings from the fears of samsara and solitary peace. So again, from this time forth until I become a Buddha, I shall keep, even at the cost of my life, a mind wishing to attain complete enlightenment, to free all living beings from the fears of samsara and solitary peace. One more time. To prevent our bodhicitta from degenerating here, we promise, here we go. From this time forth until I become a Buddha, I shall keep, even at the cost of my life, a mind wishing to attain complete enlightenment, to free all living beings from the fears of samsara and solitary peace. Now we're us undertaking to keep the Bodhisattva vow here. O Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, please listen to what I now say. Just as all the previous Sagatas generated the mind of enlightenment and accomplished all the stages of the Bodhisattva training, so will I too, for the sake of all beings, generate the mind of enlightenment and accomplish all the stages of the Bodhisattva training. 2 more times here. O Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, please listen to what I now say. Just as all the previous Sagatas generated the mind of enlightenment and accomplished all the stages of the Bodhisattva training, so will I too, for the sake of all beings, generate the mind of enlightenment and accomplish all the stages of the Bodhisattva training. Last time. O Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, please listen to what I now say. Just as all the previous Sagatas generated the mind of enlightenment and accomplished all the stages of the Bodhisattva training, so will I too, for the sake of all beings, generate the mind of enlightenment and accomplish all the stages of the Bodhisattva training. And then we just have one little verse of rejoicing here that we've generated the Bodhisattva vow. Now my life has borne great fruit. My human life has attained great meaning. Today I am born into the lineage of Buddha and have become a Bodhisattva. All my actions from now on shall accord with this noble lineage. And upon this lineage, pure and faultless, I shall never bring disgrace. Okay, so when we recite that, it's like we're renewing our Bodhisattva vow. So this is why you have all these people every day they're reciting that, once in the morning, once at night, or whatever, right? So anyhow, that I just wanted to leave that with you. That's obviously, as a way of restoring our vows and making it our prayer practice. So thank you so much. I'll finish here just so we keep on time. It's been an hour. And we've got Rinpoche's teaching the next couple weekends. So I think that's at Ganden Choling. I'm going to attend that. So the following week, I'll put out an email. We can attend a live class. I'm starting a new course, which will be on Tonglen. It'll be sort of a shorter one. And I know everyone nowadays, everyone knows what that is, but it's just some of the philosophy behind how Tonglen works. So it won't be a long course. It might just be 1 or 2 classes or something like that. But I did want to go through that. So this is sort of the practical side of the teachings where we're getting vows, and then Tonglen as a practice. And after we go to Tonglen, I'll see which one. It'll either be Mahamudra or Heart Sutra. I'll put out an email and see which one you guys want to do first. That'll probably, I'm thinking, be maybe first part of September or so, or end of August. We'll see. Okay, so next one will be Tonglen. I'll let you guys know on email for the live class, maybe in about 3 weeks or so, 3 Saturdays. Okay, so lots of love. Thank you so much. We can just take a moment to dedicate all this. Blessings of all holy beings, the truth of karma, the power of pure spirit intention, and all of our dharma wishes be fulfilled. Okay, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you,